time for the Splash Live from Civic Center TV, featuring stories from and about people like you in the greater West Bloomfield area. Simulcast on cable, 89.3 Lakes FM, social media, and the web. Now live from Green Media Center on Walnut Lake Road, it's the Splash Live.
Live, local, social, it's the Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Welcome, friends and neighbors. I'm Tyler Kieft. Thank you so much for joining us. Our top story today continues the early season dominance of the West Bloomfield Lakers football team. The L-Boys answered a Week 1 blowout victory, with much of the same in Week number 2. Here are the key moments from their first Friday night showdown at the Swamp. The first Friday night football game at West Bloomfield High School welcomes rivalry week with Southfield A&T coming to town. West Bloomfield gets off to a hot start on defense, making for a quick opening series, and then make quick work of the Warrior defense for an early Cam Hall rushing touchdown, jumping out to a 7-0 lead less than 3 minutes into the contest. The second Laker defensive drive mirrors the first. Jeremiah Benson comes up with a stunning tackle for a loss and forces Southfield to give up the football to West Bloomfield. On the ensuing drive, it's an athlete's attack with long runs from Will Espy and Obi Duru, getting the Lakers back into Warrior country. But on the first field goal attempt of the season, it's Southfield coming out on top with a 25-yard field goal block recovery to take over possession. Not long after, Southfield haunting, but they're loose with the football, and West Bloomfield comes up with a fumble recovery in the red zone, where Jamal Shakespeare picks up his first rushing touchdown of the year. Lakers up 14-zip. On the kickoff, Bryce Coburn makes it a toss-up, and the Lakers answer the call to arms. Shorter kick about the 30. Oh, after the bounce. It's going home! West Bloomfield gets the football. Rod Toddy picking it up. We go to the second, and the L-Boys make quick work of the Warriors. Obi Duru takes the rock to the mountaintop and puts West Bloomfield up 21-0. Less than a minute later, more woes snapping the football. Southfield loses it in the end zone. It's a battle for possession, and it ends in a Southfield safety, expanding the Laker lead now to 23-0. That usually means a free kick and an offensive series for West Bloomfield, but Bryce Tillman's not interested in losing his spotlight. This is a short kickoff. It's returned. Here come the Lakers. Inside the 40 to the sideline. Oh, the time of the world. Bryce Tillman, touchdown, WB! On to the third quarter. The first play from scrimmage is a handoff to Joel Davis, and the big fella wants 6. All aboard the freight train to the Warrior end zone, but he steps out just a few yards shy. No harm, no foul. Davis gets the rock on the next play for touchdown number 2 on the season, his first on the ground. Lakers go up 37-0, enacting the mercy rule and, of course, a running clock. Late in the third, Southfield A&T gains some ground, marching deep into Laker country. But when it's Friday football under the lights, it's showtime for Bryce Showtime Chandler, who nearly swipes the pigskin out of Warrior possession. That brings us just a few plays later. We head to the fourth quarter, and Bryce Chandler cashes the check on that INT. Lakers take over, and it's all extracurricular from there. The backups get some early season reps, and the Lakers make it a second straight home shutout with the same exact result as Week 1, a 37-0 victory at the Swamp. And now we fear the veer. Rochester Adams coming to town this week as the Lake Show dives into their OAA Red Division schedule. You can follow along all season with Laker football on civiccentertv.com/LakerSports. This Friday, we're off the broadcast this week. No show from us here at Civic Center TV, but state champs and Local 4+ picking up the big game as Rochester Adams comes to town. We'll get you links for that on our Facebook page as well as on civiccentertv.com/LakerSports. Stay tuned later today for episode number 2 of This Week in Laker Football for the 2025 season to get a special preview of Friday's OAA Red Division kickoff with the Highlanders. With a 2-0 start and Rochester Adams coming to town, the Lakers football team has a pretty solid idea of its identity thus far in the 2025 season. But what's it going to take to defeat Tony Petrito's Veer offense and the surging 2-0 Rochester Adams Highlanders? Here with more insight on that and more from our Laker football team is our color commentator, Matt Catoni. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to have you on after another 37-0 victory. A lot of the same from West Bloomfield in week number 2, with some obvious differences that might be a little concerning as you go into week number 3 with Rochester Adams coming to town. Matt will begin, particularly on top of all the good, the one glaring bad that you look at with a huge question mark with the Highlanders coming to town is all of those penalties in week number 2.
Yeah, really, penalties are, we talked about throughout the games, were the only thing that you're kind of looking the Lakers to eliminate going into that second game, and they kind of still had some questionable penalties at times. And that's one thing you absolutely cannot have against a team like Rochester Adams, who is ranked 14th in the state, I believe, right now. And those type of mistakes in extending drives or even keeping yourself off the field on offense can kill you in these games against Rochester Adams.
Yeah, penalties last year cost the Lakers on average about 8 yards a pop. That certainly had an impact on them on Friday against Southfield A&T. It delayed many of their drives. It gave Southfield A&T second chances. Ultimately, their defense dominant enough throughout that performance to not make those extra opportunities for Southfield A&T a problem. But that can really be an issue against a team like Rochester Adams, who's coming off a blowout of their own against a much more formidable team on paper in Rochester High School, with Ryland Rhino Waters coming into town, their quarterback. Still a plenty of talent in the skills position. What are you looking for the Lakers defense to do in week number 3, Matt, to step up even further after a couple of stellar performances and back-to-back shutouts?
Yeah, it kind of goes in line with how we were talking about penalties, and that's discipline. You mentioned the Veer offense, kind of the staple of Rochester Adams offense. And that's where that discipline is going to have to come into play. You're going to need to see guys like Jeremiah Benson and Isaiah Gray kind of maintain that lane discipline and not necessarily allowing Ryland Waters to burn them on those option plays.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game for them. Rochester Adams, one of those powerhouses of this division. They made a deep playoff run last year, even without Rhino Waters in the ballgame. He was injured for much of their playoff run in 2024. But this is really the first big test for West Bloomfield. And the biggest question that I would think is the case with this team is you look at two consecutive shutouts. You look at 7 starters returning for this defense. 2 dominant performances. Now you've got the question that will be answered in week number 3. Is this defense as dominant as it's looked in weeks 1 and 2, or was it a result of the competition? Matt, your thoughts?
Well, right now, heading into this game, you have to feel very confident in the Lakers' chances, given how dominant that trench play has been. And that's going to be, the biggest thing that we're going to look for in this matchup against Rochester Adams. Can that defensive line be as dominant and as big of a force as it has been these first 2 weeks? And also, you look to the quarterback situation. Jackson Carver has been phenomenal so far, but this is really his first big test, and we'll be able to see how he performs or if the Lakers are going to have to, kind of put some more on Jamal Shakespeare's plate if the offense starts to struggle.
Now, we'll get more on the offense in just a moment, but the third phase of the game that often goes unthought about in the game of football is the special teams front. And for West Bloomfield, they've had a couple of really impressive performances in that particular area of the game. It helped that there were some issues carrying the football on Friday last week for Southfield A&T that came into play. But even that being said, a couple of takeaways on kickoff returns or breakups on kickoff returns, including one where Bryce Tillman was able to take a kickoff return for a touchdown for West Bloomfield in these opening couple of weeks. And last week, of course, a short kickoff that ended up with a Laker recovery. The special teams has been quite special in the first 2 weeks as well.
Yeah, and really a lot of that comes down to coaching and team mentality. And that's one thing about this team, whether they're on offense or defense or special teams, they like to hit. And really the prime example of that is that kickoff recovery where Mario Rocha flies down the field and hits the nearest Southfield A&T tight end to just make sure that they're not able to recover the ball. He's not necessarily flying down there half-cocked trying to just get the football. He's going down there with purpose and just hitting the closest guy. And that's really the best way to describe this Lakers team. They like to hit.
And they play physical and they play smart, but also on top of that, when you have a team that's being able to make those kinds of heads-up plays, take the football back in the special teams front and then make the most out of it, it makes an opposing team game plan around that in the special teams front. Maybe you are going to kick to those kickoff returners that have that speed and ability in the open field, but they're dangerous in their own right. Like I mentioned, Bryce Tillman-Jones just a couple of weeks back, a 60-yard touchdown return for West Bloomfield, 60 yards. Obi Duru, he has 2 kickoff returns so far this season, 44 yards in total. That's a 22-yard average. That can get you to the 35, to the 45-yard line, even into plus territory on those shorter kicks. And Christian Banks also picking up at least 1 kickoff return so far this season, although it was a fair catch for no gain. So they got weapons in that front too, which can make them really dangerous in the special teams. What has been the surprise for the Lakers so far in these first 2 weeks, putting up 37 points a pop in each of those first 2 games. But overall, their offense seems like the chemistry is really gelling, Matt, which is quite surprising when you have 4 returning starters and the other 7, much of them getting their first varsity experience in this season.
Yeah, and really, you mentioned that chemistry, and that's what stands out on the tape, because you see these playmakers, they fly downfield to make blocks for each other. And that's really just the biggest key to this offense. Everyone is a willing blocker, and you never necessarily know where the ball is going or who the ball is going to be going to with this kind of Hydra type offense with Jamal Shakespeare, Joel Evans, Will Espy. There's just a plethora of weapons on offense that they can get the ball to. And with everyone being so willing to do their job, it just makes the offense that much more effective.
5 rushers for the Lakers already with at least 1 rushing touchdown in these first 2 weeks. That goes to talk about that offensive line that is only returning 1 starter from last year in the left tackle, Travis Robertson, who's going to Bowling Green State next fall. Quite surprising considering when you have a rushing game like that needs to get these rushers out into those speed sweeps, particularly guys like Obi Duru, guys like Jamal Shakespeare, who likes to run right up the gut and is a little bit smaller in stature. The blocking has been excellent. It is set up for 5 guys on this team to have at least 1 touchdown. Will Espy, the lone player, with 2 rushing touchdowns on the season, both of those coming in week number 1, Matt. And overall, the blocking's been excellent for this team, but also the quarterback play. You would think about the old saying from John Madden that if you have 2 quarterbacks, you basically have none. While the Lakers play with 2, most of the reps going to Jackson Carver, who's been incredibly efficient in these first 2 ball games.
Yeah, he's done a tremendous job of especially throwing outside the numbers on hitch routes and out routes. And it's really helped the Lakers at times pick up those 3rd and shorts or 2nd and shorts with just these quick dump off passes to their playmakers that allows them to get out in space. And that's one thing that has been crucial this year with Jackson Carver is his poise. He doesn't necessarily try to do too much. He just lets the game come to him and doesn't try to force anything.
He's been excellent, 8 for 11 for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns in these opening performances for West Bloomfield. Those touchdowns both pretty much bomb passes. One was to Willie Edwards, that 67-yard touchdown bomb in week number 1 at home against Dearborn Fordson on a Thursday night. He answered that also later on that game, a 31-yard touchdown pass to Joel Davis. Much of the action on the ground last week where Joel Davis also had a big game himself. Overall, these first 2 weeks, averaging 13, almost 14 yards a carry, has a touchdown on the ground and a touchdown in the air. He's been really the breakout star for the Lakers in these first 96 minutes of football.
Yeah, and if there's really, like how I said before, this team loves to hit. If there's one player that really fits that description, it's him. He's on offense, serving as a fullback early in the game, helping kind of wear down the defense, get some rotation in on the defensive line, but then come second half, he's the one pounding the rock and just eating up, as you said, 13 yards per carry. And he's been a very nice foundational piece for the Lakers so far this year because he really adds a power dimension to that offense.
All these skill players, by and large, averaging a significant amount of yardage on each and every play. I go down their rushing numbers. Obi-Duru, 8 yards a carry. Joel Davis, 14 yards roughly a carry. Jamal Shakespeare with 8. Espy with 6. Cam Hall with 5. Those are incredible numbers. That tells you every time you're touching the ball, you're making an impact play. You're efficient. You're moving the football. Third downs aren't even really being an issue because you're not facing them. But, Matt, that is all going to change. It is a completely different outlook when you're going up against teams in the OAA Red Division. That's why you want these first 2 weeks to be as clean of football as possible. We talked about the penalties. That's got to get cleaned up. That's on the obvious front. But for the Lakers, what other steps forward are you looking for from them this week in their first big test in the OAA Red Division?
Yeah, really, I just want to see them run the football with the same level of efficiency that they've had the past 2 weeks. I mean, obviously, you're not going to average 13 yards per carry against Rochester Adams, but if they're able to average 5 yards per carry, 6 yards per carry, it'll allow them to maintain those second and shorts, third and shorts, where they're able to run the ball and not necessarily put Jackson Carver in a position where he has to do too much. And also, as always, if you're running the ball well, you're protecting the football, which keeps the ball out of Waters' hands.
And you hate to put the pressure on these high schoolers in week number 3 and start throwing out terms like must-win games. But you look at the first couple of weeks for teams in the OAA Red Division, and those tiebreakers being the out-of-conference results. Rochester Adams coming in 2-0. Oxford coming into this week 2-0. They're taking on Clarkston, so that's going to have OAA Red Division implications. The winner of our game in West Bloomfield on Friday night takes a firm lead atop the OAA Red Division, with Clarkston sitting at 1-1, and they're either going to be 1-2 or 2-1. Lake Orion yet to pick up a win. They had a really tough week number 2, a couple of key injuries in the backfield. This is what makes this week so important for the Lakers. It's not only setting the tone for Red Division play, it gives them a chance to have a breakout week in the very tough division that ultimately does have a big say in the results for the outlook come playoff time.
Yeah, really, you mentioned the other teams in the OAA Red kind of getting off to a sluggish start and ultimately getting a tiebreaker with Rochester Adams. We've seen in years past where those tiebreakers come back into play with, the Lakers even getting OAA Red title in recent years because of it. It's very important to get out to these big starts, and especially playing a team like Rochester Adams where you can just get one step ahead of them early on in the season. It's just crucial to get that title.
Adams winning in week number 1, allowing less than 10 points against Romeo, a team that's had a ton of success in recent years in the MHSAA. And then Rochester last week was a 31-3 blowout for the Highlanders. So they're coming in hot as well. That's going to be a big part of this game, Matt. Both teams really excited. They want to make a major impact in 2025, and they have a chance to do so on Friday night. Matt, lastly, before I let you go, who are you looking to as sort of the next breakout players in these couple of weeks? We've had some surprises. Cam Hall's been excellent. We talked a lot about Joel Davis playing in all 3 phases and making big plays. But now you start to see the superstars on your team at the very top of those lists break out and be impact players. At the top of those Lakers leaders, those star players that are likely to have D1 aspirations next year, who are you looking to be the driving force against Rochester Adams on Friday night?
Well, Jamal Shakespeare, I really expect to be a big part of this game, him kind of being that main veteran piece on offense. And then Will Espy, you mentioned he's the only guy with 2 rushing touchdowns on the year so far. But I think he's really their biggest offensive weapon, arguably. And I think this could be the week that we start to see them try to get him the ball more and lean on him a bit more.
Don't be surprised, too, to see Jeremiah Benson start to have a bigger impact on the offensive side of the football, too. He has been huge so far on the defensive side, putting pressure on the quarterback. He was an absolute menace in week number 2 against Southfield A&T. He's playing tight end this year. Those short yardage passes, those check downs are going to be huge for West Bloomfield, for Jackson Carver, for Jamal Shakespeare to dump the football out if and when Rochester Adams is able to lock down deep in the secondary. Matt, we'll have plenty more on the West Bloomfield Lakers after their game on Friday night against Rochester Adams, and see you right here on The Splash next week. Thank you for your time.
Yep, thank you for having me.
Always appreciate it. You can follow along all season with West Bloomfield Laker football on civiccentertv.com/Laker Sports. See the latest game as well on that same exact page. It's where you'll catch This Week in Laker Football later on today as well, and get information on where to watch the Lakers and the Highlanders on Friday night, Local 4+ state champs, and it's going to be a great environment out at the Swamp. We've got some special stuff planned for you as well out in the stadium for what is going to be yet another fantastic rivalry Friday night at Laker Stadium. Close to home in Sylvan Lake, a Homestead, Florida woman sought to find a local house with special ties to her family history. Not sure where to look, Dawn Cressley turned to the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society and the Sylvan Lake community and was able to connect with the design of her great-grandfather, dating all the way back to 1919. I had a chance to speak with Dawn about this special summer experience that she got right here in Sylvan Lake.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you on, joining us all the way from Florida just a few weeks ago. Before this, you were right here with us in our local community. You came into town, you're coming into town for a wedding, but beforehand, you were going to be in the area. You wanted to find this connection with your great-grandfather. You didn't know where to start. Now, you eventually found the house that you were looking for in the city of Sylvan Lake, but now what was the process like to find that actual house along the way?
So I actually contacted the Historical Society, who put me in touch with Helen Jane Peters, who is the resident historian. Mm-hmm. And she was able to tell me that she had actually babysat in the house and knew the couple that was living there and contacted them to actually let me visit the home and learn more information about all the things that my great-grandfather had done in the community back in the 1920s.
Yeah, Helen Jane Peters is such a great resource for Sylvan Lake history and for all these different stories that date back sometimes maybe just a few years, sometimes all the way back to the very beginning and some of those seminal moments in the history of the city of Sylvan Lake. Dawn, for you, of course, you have that family connection to Charles Fisher, who was your great-grandfather and designed this particular home in Sylvan Lake, known as Wildwood. It's on Oakwood in Sylvan Lake. It was the family name for the home was Wildwood. That's really all you had, was the name of your great-grandfather, the name of the home, and the fact that it was in the city of Sylvan Lake here in the greater West Bloomfield area. But what sparked your desire to make this connection with your great-grandfather and see this home? What got you interested in that?
So I was excited. I had never visited Michigan before. I had heard a lot of great things about the Pontiac area. I knew that's where my grandmother was born. I knew that the time that they spent in Sylvan Lake, my dad's oldest brother and sister were born in Pontiac and spent 2 years there. My grandfather was in medical school, and I knew that there was a lot of precious memories there, and I just wanted to visit the area and see the home, and it was amazing.
You can see the home on your screen, some pictures, some of the historical pictures. You saw a look of what it's like today over on Oakwood in Sylvan Lake. And Dawn, for you, this kind of all came together so quickly. Helen Jane Peters, I spoke with her just before this interview earlier on today, and she had mentioned that in the days before, that's when you were making contact with the Historical Society. They got through to her, and she actually made contact with you, say, hey, I found the home. I've talked to the homeowners. They want to have you come in and take a look at this home with those ties to your great-grandfather. On the day you arrived, as you were at Detroit Metro Airport, coming in. Now, what was that moment like for you to not only hear, hey, I found the home, the people that are in the home are welcoming me into it, but to have that happen as you're actually getting into town that day?
It was just amazing. I couldn't believe that such a small community could offer such information and, just such friendliness. It was amazing. And I had the photo album, and I took it with me into the home to meet Barbara and Mark, and they were just so amazing and so interested in seeing all the old pictures and comparing the old rooms and what they were like then and what you can see similarities now, and it was everybody was just so amazing, and giving me information about the buildings that my great grandfather had built in the community. I had no idea that he had built City Hall, that he had built a schoolhouse that was a very popular building in the community. That him and my grandmother had donated a painting. Mary Had a Little Lamb that is also an amazing story. And this information has just been so wonderful to share with my family members who really didn't know this information from my family. After I talked to an aunt after World War II started, a lot of things in Michigan were, I think, kind of lost. So this was just amazing information that a lot of the family members just were blown away hearing about.
And it was an interesting part of the story, too. Helen Jane told me that something that both she and you were pretty surprised to find as you were able to tour this home during your time in Sylvan Lake was that it was built in 1919. A lot of what was in the original design is still part of how it is designed and laid out today, including something pretty cool. You mentioned that this kind of all sparked from wanting to get a little bit big of a connection to your grandmother who last lived in the area from your family. Charles Fisher, your great-grandfather, his grandchildren had their hands imprinted into the feet imprinted into the den's plaster wall. It's still there.
Well, interestingly enough, my grandmother was an art major at Beaver College back in the 1920s, and there she is, and she would always do handprints of her children and grandchildren. And as soon as I saw the footprints next to the fireplace, I knew that was my grandmother with her children doing footprints in the plaster. It was just so very touching to see that it had been restored, and that it was just amazing.
How surprised were you, Dawn, to find that the community was so helpful, so welcoming in making these connections for you, and in the process being able to sort of bring together those connections that they have to their city history through places like the Daniel Whitfield School, which your great-grandfather helped to design. Of course, the Mary and Her Little Lamb painting that was in the Whitfield School has recently been restored in the city of Sylvan Lake. How surprised were you that these connections were so strong and that you were able to make that sort of immediate connection with the Sylvan Lake community yourself?
All I can say is it was just so very touching that the community was just so warm and welcoming and able to share this information that really my family and my aunt, who's in New Hampshire right now, still alive, I was able to share this information with her. Just so heartfelt thanks to everybody in the community that were able to share a lot of this information that none of us were aware of. I tell this story to people in Miami and friends I have here, and people cannot believe the amazing people of this small town in Michigan that were able to share such history, and that I was able to pass this along, and that we can continue to pass this along to the rest of our family.
The prettiest little city in Michigan that's more than just the picturesque views on Sylvan Lake and in other areas. Dawn, thank you so much for joining us, and big congratulations to you to be able to have gone on this journey and found what you were looking for here in the city of Sylvan Lake.
Thank you so much, and thanks to Helen and Barbara and Mark and everybody that were helped to make this journey possible this summer. Best part of my summer. I can't say thank you enough.
Only about 12 more days for someone to top that story and make a better summer story from right here in Greater West Bloomfield. Shows the beauty of the city of Sylvan Lake goes far beyond the picturesque views. More information and your local history journey begins on gwbhs.org with our friends over at the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society. Music lovers are about to have a weekend to remember close to home in our community with Bex Gaunt, Zach Stokowski, and friends making their way to Prince of Peace Church in West Bloomfield on Sunday, September 14th, featuring folk melodies, classic Disney ballads, and Broadway tunes to get you up on your feet. You'll be having a fun time with music for people of all different ages and tastes right here in your backyard. Here with more of a special preview is Bex Gaunt. Bex, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Tyler.
Yeah, happy to have you on to talk about your upcoming concert at Prince of Peace. Kind of playing a little bit of everything for the community on this particular Sunday night. So give us a little bit of insight into why that's the case. Why bring a little bit of something from Broadway, a little bit from Disney, and then, of course, also some violin tunes as well?
Well, my career has been very eclectic and really all about meaningful collaborations with all kinds of artists, folk artists, bluegrass, classical, choirs, everything. And so at this point, I thought, what if I captured all of these beautiful collaborations that I've had in my career by featuring some of my favorite pieces, some of my favorite songs throughout, including a few of my original pieces.
And then to do so at a local church. In our community, it's going to be Prince of Peace in West Bloomfield, where this performance will happen on Sunday. But why that environment as a place to perform this wide variety of different tunes?
Well, as many artists get their start, my start as a collaborating musician was in a church in middle school. And church is a place where people come to seek connection, and music is such an important part of church community experiences. And so I know I've really enjoyed singing and cantering there from time to time. And so it'll be wonderful to share a different perspective of music that's not just sacred. And
you mentioned, too, that the singing element of your music career began in part in the church, but you're also a violinist. So what drew you to the violin?
Well, funny enough, I was a tennis player first as a kid. I played piano, but tennis was really my passion, and I had a rare injury at age 10. And so my mom got me violin lessons, and it stuck, and I'm grateful.
And so as you were growing up as a vocalist, as a violinist, interested in all these different types of music, what are some of the musical influences that helped you mold yourself as an artist and led to you playing a lot of these tunes that people in our community are going to hear on Sunday, September 14th?
Well, like I said, I've had a really eclectic career ranging from Disney, classical. I've had a chance to perform with the Minnesota Orchestra and other orchestras, but my influences are wide-ranging. I think of car rides on the way to school, listening to Simon and Garfunkel with my dad, and Carole King with my mom, and of course Peter, Paul, and Mary, and Cat Stevens, and Disney. Just a really wide array.
The performance is Sunday, September 14th at Prince of Peace Church in West Bloomfield. You can find more information either on their Facebook page at Prince of Peace WB or on their website, princeofpeacecatholic.church. Bex Gaunt is with us, one of multiple performers that will be part of this show on Sunday at Prince of Peace. You're also partnering with Zach Stokowski and friends. What do they bring to this performance? Not only having it be you and your eclectic musical talent and your background, but then to have even more artists be involved. How does that change the dynamic of this show?
Well, to me, music is all about connection, and these are artists that are just renowned and in the community and beyond. And Zach is also a composer, local composer, music director, and he and I are actually going to feature a song spoiler alert, he's my husband, and a song that we sang together at our wedding a few years ago that tells a little bit of our background and story. So it's really special to work with such high caliber musicians, but also they're my friends and they're my family. So what could be better than that?
I was just about to ask about what's your favorite song in the order to play, but now we've got that answer, let's go back through the whole catalog. You play a little bit of Disney, a little bit of Broadway, of course you play some classic violin tunes as well, folk music. Of all those different genres, what is your absolute favorite? What's the most fun experience for you to play as you're a musician connecting with your audience?
Gosh, it really depends on the day. Which one's my favorite? I am going to do a little bit of Brandi Carlile, so that's exciting. A little Sarah Bareilles. I think in these arenas, in these situations, sometimes music theater, which I don't get that many opportunities to do out in public, I really have fun with that. So I'm excited for the music theater part of the performance.
Bex Gaunt is with us. You can see herself, Zach Stokowski, and friends performing at Prince of Peace Church in West Bloomfield Sunday, September 14th. Show begins at 4 o'clock, and you can find more info by following Prince of Peace Church on Facebook at Prince of Peace WB. Bex, you got this entire show planned out. You're coming to West Bloomfield this week. You're going to be playing a number of different songs, but as you're connecting with the audience, what do you believe makes that connection strong in an environment like this, where you're in a close-knit community? A lot of the people that will be there are going to be from within that church community. So as an artist, how do you build that connection and make each show individually special for the audience in front of you?
Well, I make it special by being real, being authentic. So, there's the elements of music that is an escape, that is an adventure, that takes you out from your regular day-to-day mundane things and takes you to this magical place. But there's also the part of connection and music where you think about, what is this community going through, or what might be on their mind? And, recently, specifically for, I know Catholics and Christians and people all over are feeling the weight of the recent tragedy in Minneapolis at Annunciation. And so I want to make sure that I take time to honor those heavy thoughts and those burdens and the people who are suffering. And so that's something I work into my performances is a way to connect to those tough things that we're dealing with. So we will be singing a couple songs in honor of all those affected by those tragedies.
Always heartwarming to be able to connect with other people, take a step back and see the realism that comes from some of our own actions as a society in our community and communities nearby. Reflect on those and still find some joy together all through the medium of music. Bex, thank you so much for your time today. Before we let you go, anything else that people should know about your upcoming performance at Prince of Peace in West Bloomfield?
It looks like it's going to be a beautiful day on Sunday, so we hope that you'll join us and enjoy. There'll be sing-along aspects. Bring the whole family. It's kid-friendly, and I just know you're going to enjoy it.
Indoors or outdoors for this? You mentioned it's going to be a nice day.
It'll be outdoors in the garden.
Even better, you're going to have a beautiful show out in the garden, in the elements, a beautiful fall weather system we've had of late, a little bit of summer peeking back in this week and this weekend as well. Bex, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Tyler. I appreciate it.
You can see her, Zach Stokowski, and friends all performing Prince of Peace Church Sunday, 4 p.m. in the garden right here in West Bloomfield. For more information, visit them on Facebook at Prince of Peace WB and also on their website, princeofpeacecatholic.church, for a list of even more events coming up. We'll take a break on the Splash Live. On the other side, future events are going to have a brand new venue that will attract people from all across our community for music, fun activities, and of course, all that fun you get with Parks and Rec as well. We'll have details on that coming up live, local, social. It's the Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
We'll be right back with the Splash Live. This is Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. On cable and the radio. On the web too, and on social media. Civic Center TV, television that's close to home.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is, fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kids should know.
I'm Gina Gregory, president of the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society. I'm excited that Civic Center TV has reached 1 million views on YouTube. Congratulations, that's just terrific. We appreciate everything Civic Center does for the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society and the community. For us, they promote and highlight our events. It's awesome to have them available 24/7 on YouTube. I'm Gina Gregory and proud to be one in a million.
Bringing you stories and memories from Kego Harbor. Civic Center TV, television that's close to home. And now, back to the Splash, live.
Live, local, social, welcome back to The Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm Tyler Keefe, your host for today. Welcoming you back to the show, and always, of course, inviting you to follow along with our programming on civiccentertv.com. If you're a football fan, you want to follow along with the West Bloomfield Lakers off to another hot start in 2025, civiccentertv.com/Lakersports. Also, highly encourage you to follow us across all of our social media for clips from today's shows, announcements on other special programming coming up, and all the latest you want to see from across your community. Quick, easy, and in your pocket all across our social media. Facebook at Civic Center TV 15, YouTube, Instagram, and X as well at Civic Center TV. The Future Connect Community Center at the West Bloomfield Town Hall Complex is one of the most highly anticipated amenities coming to Greater West Bloomfield. With the bond to support the project voted in favor by the community just over a year ago, work is now underway to make a final plan and get construction going in the coming months. I had a chance to speak to West Bloomfield Park's Executive Director Kelly Heyer to get the inside scoop. Kelly, thank you for being with us.
You're welcome. Good morning, Tyler.
Yeah, good morning. Glad to have you on the program with us. You gave an update to the Township Board recently about where the project is at for the community. I'm sure they're very excited a year later after voting through the bond to get an update on where we're looking at for the future of that massive Connect Community Center at the Civic Center complex. This is what was proposed at the time of the bond a year ago. A lot has changed since then. Where's the project at as we speak?
Oh, that's a loaded question, Tyler. But to simplify it, we are still in the planning design phase. So with any kind of construction project, those of you listening at home, maybe you're familiar with the residential update, but on the commercial level, there's a lot more behind the scenes that go into it. And so when the image that was just shown, that was our rendering created a couple years ago in order to prepare for the bonds campaign, the public information that we wanted to share to the voters on what it could be. So after hiring and onboarding our architect firm, our engineer, our landscape architect, as well as our geotechnical engineer, our interior designer, low voltage, things are progressing, and we're able to make better informed decisions given the exact site placement of the building. So right now, it's August. We are in the middle of developmental design, and that means we've gone through concept design as well as schematic design. So the floor plans are settling down. We're focusing on the exterior facade, the materials, how do we break up the big building into smaller sections so it doesn't seem so big on this campus. And what we're talking about is a building that is over 46,000 square feet. So if you measure exterior wall, it is just over 48,000. But the first floor is under 28,000 square feet. And the first floor is bigger than the second floor. However, it encompasses the gymnasium, the welcome center, as well as the nature center on the first floor. And the second floor will be more multi-purpose space and where the staff is, as well as access to the track. So when you fit all those amenities in, and given the site that we have to work with on the campus, the building ended up being very long and linear. And so we've broken the building up into 3 different components. And so right now it is figuring out, all right, do we have the front entrance right? Do we have what we need for that faces the parking lot, that faces the woodland wetlands? And so making all those decisions and making it so that it is, we have the ability to talk about it internally as staff and figure out operational and maintenance-wise, what is the best approach to these different sections. So there's a lot of discussions behind the scenes, Tyler, a lot of intentional meetings. We have a lot of different agendas, different of our consultants behind the scenes having those conversations every day. And then professionally, we report to the commission, staff does. And so then we take all of these decisions that staff is recommending to the commission level. Park Commission has conversation, discussion, approve what they need to. And then it's what you're referencing Monday night is Park Commission does report monthly to the Township Board on this project because it's a partnership. We have different authority that the Park Commission is allowed with statute, what we can decide ourselves and what we need to take to Township Board. And budget is definitely one thing. Statutorily, we need to report to the Township. So that's a long-winded answer, but to very specifically, we are still settling in the design phase and making decisions that with our professionals that we've hired for this project.
And economically, that's the most sound thing to do because you want to make sure you have a pretty concrete plan come your January 2026 estimate for starting the construction phase of this project, especially where we're at in our economy with tariffs and with the supply chain still very much affecting the overall cost of this project and wanting to stay within budget. But Kelly, some of the concepts that were really critical to the design phase and continue to be in this design phase, respect for nature, biomimicry, community outreach, most importantly, being a good neighbor, those all kind of encompass themselves in some of the key changes to the plan that came into the most recent presentation at the August 11th Township Board meeting. Previously, it was conceptualized to maintain at least a portion, if not the entirety, of the current Recreation Activity Center in the plans for the future Connect Community Center. Now that's different. That building is currently under this plan going to be demolished, mostly to make space for the building to, again, fit that footprint on the Civic Center complex, but also, most importantly, to allow that footprint to be minimally effective on the nature surrounding that building. That was a really critical part and continues to be in your planning phase, correct?
Well said, Tyler. So if you want to show back that rendering or put the rendering back on the screen, on the green side, the west side of the site plan, we are taking down the building. So 3/4 of the building can be put back to nature. What we've noticed is this campus, we need a gathering space. And right now, for example, we have Food Truck Tuesdays that happen in between us and the library, but the food truck has to be parked in the parking lot, and it is not the best design for that. So we're making more intentional gathering space outside our building. And that's to celebrate nature. The trailhead is right there. Our outdoor natural area, play area will be expanded. And it's going to be a better user experience in nature. And we needed to put back more green space on the west side. So that is in the light green there that you can see. And then the other colors that are blacked out, you can see the 3 sections of the building. So the connected to nature makes most sense is the nature center. And on the second floor is staff. And then as you move east, the middle part of the building, that is where you would enter the welcome customer service, multi-purpose space. And then upstairs is senior lounge space, as well as our dedicated gaming room, lecture room, where the furniture can be card tables set up all day. And then the east side of the building where it is the high school gymnasium, high school size, and that gets you bottom floor where you can do pickleball, our larger group fitness classes, and then the elevated track will be directly above it. And so that is a big space. So if you look on the floor plans, the gymnasium, the track is 1/3 of the building. And so that's where a ton of square footage had to go in that direction. So that's just under 10,000 square feet itself on that right-hand east side of the building.
Yeah, a lot of recreation space still planned in this building. A lot of those original amenities that were proposed, that were discussed pre-bond and were ultimately agreed upon by the township's electorate, still going to be a factor in this. That's what most people on the day-to-day listening today, watching today, or in the future on CivicCenterTV.com want to know about. All these changes, of course, affect the space that these programs will ultimately be in. So what are we looking at right now in terms of where these plans are at, what's sort of been changed, and how those spaces for these amenities are being affected by some of these modifications in the plan at this stage of the process?
Right. So price has to drive much of our discussion. So as you heard in our budget update, both with the Park Commission and Township Board, consideration for tariffs and still putting in a good contingency. We are spending more than we anticipated within the bond dollars, so that warrants a discussion for the other projects we still want to accomplish. So with that said, we still aren't getting exactly everything we want. In fact, the question came up the other night, would you build a bigger building if you could? Absolutely, because we know the residents deserve all the public, multi-generational, recreational and leisure space indoors. But we've had to make some decisions. So we made a couple of slices through the building, so it's still going to be very user-friendly. The square footages of the multi-purpose spaces are still great spaces, better than what we have right now. And so if you're at the Recreation Activity Center, that building, the entire building with staff is 8,400 square feet. So if you keep that into context, with the nature center that we currently have and the 2 multi-purpose rooms, we're doubling in the public space as far as square footage, plus adding the gymnasium. So we're still able to have group fitness, Tyler, the lectures, card gaming, the discovery days in the nature center, all of this. And it's going to be better spaces. So right now, unfortunately, you do look at the parking lots. It's very limited windows that we have both here at the Recreation Activity and the current Connect building that we rent at Simsbury. So we've been able to maintain those square footages. We had to reduce on storage, which goes against our principle in Parks and Recreation because we just don't like the clutter and the equipment and supplies sitting out. So we've made some really smart decisions how we can do that better. And then we've had to, again, minimize a couple square feet on some of the multi-purpose rooms, but we still maintained everything we promised, plus done better on our circulation in the hallways, the corridors. And we've done better on delivering the requested additional seating and lounge space, like the drop-in space that we heard through our stakeholder conversations that everybody did desire. So we're trying to listen to the residents, still incorporate their ideas and what's important to them. Our instructors are critical in this process, getting their buy-in. But all in all, we've been able to maintain all of those things that we've been able to adhere to. The other great thing is that our landscape architects we've hired have come up with some really creative spaces outside that the campus and our residents are going to be able to use. It's going to be really exciting. We're in the middle of our design development phase. So soon, and we were hoping by the end of the summer, we'll start showing some more of those renderings, all the sides of the building, including some interiors. So stay tuned. Civic Center TV, you'll be the first to know to help us roll out our public update on the building. But we've still got to go through the next couple of weeks and crunch down, make sure that we're getting this right. The rendering that you do see that you've used, that we used in the presentation, is from June. So we've made significant modifications to that. And again, it is based on stakeholder feedback. And we want the people using this building and the staff operating it to be really satisfied to be able to deliver the next 30 years on recreation and leisure services.
Yeah, you want to get this right. You're consolidating all of those different facilities that house staff for West Bloomfield Parks, of course, Connect Senior Center, all that recreation space and more to make this a great amenity centralized at the Civic Center complex. Kelly Heyer is with us, the Executive Director of West Bloomfield Parks, with updates on the Connect Community Center project currently underway right now. They're in the planning phase still, hoping in the coming weeks to have more of these plans locked down, start getting into the permit phase as we get into the fall. And the goal still by the turn of the year 2026 to begin construction on that project. Kelly, a couple more questions for you. It's really important in this also, and you mentioned it briefly earlier on, keeping in mind that this bond was not only for the Connect Community Center, but also for really important projects, kind of smaller projects in scope, but very, very, very important maintenance projects for going forward at some of our parks, including Marshbank. So how much of a factor does that also play, especially on the financial side, the planning side, to make this great, extensive building, but not take away from the necessity to still do these other projects?
That's a great question. And to answer that, I want to touch back on the budget process for the building. And if those of you listening at home go back and listen to both Park Commission updates for July, as well as the Township Board update I just gave in August, you'll hear me reference to 3 phases of the budget. So when it comes to this big community center project, we have budget check-in points after each phase of our design. So the next couple weeks, we'll be receiving the design set from our architects and engineers on the design development phase. And so we'll be working with our cost estimators to check in. Are we still on track with the estimated now at $24.5 million for the budget? And that still includes the contingencies. So then what happens to the other projects? Tyler, to your question, what is our approach there? And with Parks and Recreation, we are project managing all day long, whether it's events, all the enhancements that you've seen the last 55 years with West Bloomfield Parks. So we've, for example, you'll heard me reference when we built Lily Pad Springs. That was a budget that we had saved up for and a project that we knew we were funding internally with prior year funds, as well as the taxpayer dollars that come in. And so that's the same approach that we tackle our capital improvement projects. And we have a 10-year plan that is a rolling plan where we take and look at the park system as a whole, figure out what is our deferred maintenance, what are the enhancements we want to add to, the amenities we add to, what kind of property do we want to acquire, and all of that is into our CIP project discussion. So with the pickleball courts at Drake Sports Park, the Marshbank Park paving project, as well as the playgrounds we've talked to, the Marshbank paving was the first thing on the list, and we did commence that project August 1st. And the great news about that, when we went into this paving project, we knew it was a 3-year phase, and we had estimated $1 million for each phase. Going off of Drake Sports Park, we had just done that park. And we were really lucky on our bidders. The entire project will be $1.9 million. So it is under budget, and only a third of that project will be paid for by bond dollars. So at this time, there's little wiggle room for that, but we will be figuring out Drake Sports Park as well as the playgrounds in our CIP conversation in the next budget year. So for those residents, rest assured, West Bloomfield Parks, we continue to deliver amazing amenities, and we're really proud that our residents do support us. So there is not a big list of deferred maintenance, and we're able to tackle that. So more to come on that specifically, but we know about it early on and able to strategize with the park commissioners to make sure that our residents get the amenities that we have promised them.
And all the powers that be definitely also a factor in this planning process from the Parks and Recreation Commission. They're overseeing this. They're talking about this in their public meetings, including their televised monthly meetings. So, same goes with the West Bloomfield Township Board. If you want to see those presentations, civiccentertv.com in our on-demand section. The July 23rd West Bloomfield Parks and Recreation Commission meeting was their most recent presentation there. And then the Township Board, they did a presentation with the latest budget information and design information renovation. That's the August 11th meeting. Again, civiccentertv.com. We're joined by Kelly Heyer, Executive Director of West Bloomfield Parks. That's the update on the Connect Community Center. Kelly, thank you so much for your time today.
Great questions, Tyler. Happy to be on.
More updates on the Connect Community Center on wbparks.org. It's also a great time to watch the latest West Bloomfield Township Board special work session with us here at Civic Center TV. Another big project on its way with major renovations scheduled this October for Fire Station number 1 on Orchard Lake Road. CivicCenterTV.com is the place to go. Just head over there to our on-demand page where you can see a full discussion on some of the plans as we head toward October for Fire Station number 1's renovation. That's our show for today. I want to remind you that television that's close to home is always online on CivicCenterTV.com and across our social media. Big thank you to our entire crew and to you for joining us on today's edition of the program. For our entire team, I'm Tyler Kieft. Live, local, social, this has been The Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.